Don't forget to press record. Got it?
Got
Hey.
it. Hey.
Okay.
All right, you gonna count us in?
I sure am. Hold on. Let me figure out. Hold on. Let me look at myself in Zoom. I'm always sitting so that, oh, I can crank this down.
Are you sitting or standing at the moment?
I'm sitting.
Nice.
Oh, I don't want my microphone to block my cutie.
Totally.
That was a little too high.
Look at us with our short hair.
I know, it's so fun. It's the time. 2023. Begin again. Yep. Oh, sorry. When you asked me if I was ready, I maybe should have said no. Okay. It's just like, a bunch of shit gets piled up on your desk. There we go. Okay. Okay. Audible? Audacity?
Audacity? Yeah.
Okay.
Count us in. 3, 2, 1, click.
You were counting this?
No, you're counting us in. I just want you to tell us when to click. 3, 2, 1, click.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, click.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Ruby. And this is the self-study.
The number of times we've done it, and how is it not seamless every single time? Hold on. I need to check my microphone to make sure it's set. Okay. It is. Okay. Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Ruby.
And we are the Duality Project.
Let's start one more time.
Let's
just ping pong that. So I'm Kate, I'm Ruby, Duality Project Self-Study Podcast.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Ruby.
And we're the Duality Project.
And you're listening to the Self-Study Podcast.
The Duality Project is empowerment from the inside. We seek to live life on purpose so that we can more intentionally and intimately show up in our relationships and our communities.
With a healthier perspective on self-development, we offer the self-study program, one-on-one self-study coaching, and this podcast that supports you in bridging the gap between who you want to be and how you actually show up.
Through exploration and awareness, you'll discover a deeper understanding of yourself to become happier, healthier, and more grounded.
We're so glad you're here. Something that goes along with this podcast that you already know about is the self-study program, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, let's start with our gratitude practice.
Fun.
Kate, what are you grateful for about yourself?
About myself? Yeah, I got COVID for the 3rd time this week. And for starters, I remember the first time I got COVID, I was just so panicked to communicate that with anyone else and tell them hey, you've been exposed to me. It just felt that felt so heavy. And then something else that happens to me when I feel sick is I don't know, then, everybody starts texting you and they're like, how are you feeling? But then it's when I'm sick, I don't want to text you back, because I'm sick. And so for the past literally maybe 2.5 days, I really have been in the bed. COVID has taken me out every single time. And this time I had no problem canceling plans and being hey, I have COVID, I'm asleep. And I had no problem telling the people who I had seen hey, I got COVID, do with that information what you will. And I had no problem not texting anybody back. And so I just kind of today I feel great. I kind of feel I waited it out and just gave myself the space that I needed, and it felt easy and I didn't have to force myself to do it. I didn't feel guilty about not texting anybody back. I just let myself be sick. So I'm grateful that, I don't know, I give myself the time that I need sometimes these days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I was talking with my therapist last week a lot about how, even though I've come really, really far in my growth around receiving help from people and allowing support and not trying to do everything on my own, I still notice some resistance come up. I'm still kind of working through that about like trying to categorize like when and why, you know, is it like a gender role thing? Is it like just like a personally embedded thing? You know, it's definitely tied some to like, if I don't do enough as a partner, then I'm not a good enough partner or whatever. But I feel very grateful that I have come so far in that, and that Jake and I have a relational dynamic that feels very easy to be honest with myself and also like with each other, and that creates a space for receiving support. And like I had a really busy week last week. My mom was coming in town to support my family. Like my sister lives next door, and we all need a little extra support right now. So she was coming into town and she needs to be picked up from the airport. And like I just started a new job situation thing on the side. And
Started a job situation.
and I couldn't fit in my schedule to go get her, but obviously we weren't going to let her like get an Uber. And you know, like it was just hard for me to ask Jake to do that, and he was so open and available and willing to do that, and I let him, and it was very helpful, and they had a great ride together, and you know, it's like not a big deal. So I feel very grateful for, I guess, like if I were to make that the gratitude more concise, I feel really grateful for my own like softening and allowing in my relationships.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel grateful for about me?
I love it. Whichever one of us gets to ask that question first. What am I grateful for about you? I have so much trust that it's just like, we've come a long way with this word, like fine. And there are some times where I'm like, Ruby, you could use it with me. And sometimes where I'm like, it's literally not fine. Like fine sometimes means like, it's good enough. Fine sometimes means like, yeah, it's good. Like everything's good. Everything's fine. Like, what do you mean? It's fine. And then fine to me also sometimes means like subpar, is like not quite it. And I always like that, like, I feel so grateful that no matter the version of fine something is, that we navigate what that means together. It feels to me like we get to use all versions of fine to mean um something, and that we didn't just decide that like fine is not something that we can say, that it's okay that sometimes things are just fine.
Did I tell you I was fine earlier?
No, you didn't.
Because I told my sister that when I went downstairs for breakfast, and she was like,
Uh-huh.
You're gonna have to tell me more about that. Like,
Well, I'm just
clearly
fine
you're like
today.
maybe
What do
not
you
good.
want
And I was
from
like,
me?
I'm fine. I really am fine. In like is it the best day of my life? Not so far. Is it the worst?
Yeah,
Definitely not. I'm fine.
I'm fine. And sometimes can just be that. But I feel like we've had a big, like, we've been talking about fine for a long time. And it's no
For sure.
longer, I guess part of what I feel grateful for you is that it no longer like, I no longer mean it, use it in like a passive aggressive way. I don't feel like you use it in a passive aggressive way. Normally it really means like, and if you're, and even if somebody like checks in, like, what is that fine? What is that fine? You're able to like go deeper in an understanding of what it is, instead of like, oh yeah, it actually means I'm having a fucking shit ass day and it's your fucking fault.
Totally. Yeah, I feel really grateful for that too. And like what that speaks to, I think, is like depth in relationship, you
Mhm.
know? That there is the trust that like even if whoever's fine, like can't go deeper in the moment, that there's trust that it'll circle back around, you know, and
Mhm.
it's like not anybody's fault, and it just like is what it is. And like,
Yeah,
yeah, it
totally.
really just feels like speaks to the depth that I also appreciate in my
Yeah. And
relationship.
also just like a graciousness that like says like in every single moment of every single thing, there doesn't have to be so much anxiety around the specificity of how specifically do you actually feel. Because sometimes it's like, oh my God, that question right there is, I feel overwhelmed and I feel fucking annoyed that you are asking me, not you specifically, Ruby, but like that someone is asking me like that I have to like dig deep like for them. And sometimes I'm really willing
Mm,
to do that. And sometimes I'm like, you kind of asked me to like check in with you, and I kind of don't want to do all that right now. And that has to be okay sometimes. And sometimes I feel like we don't really check in, but like you have a sense and I have a sense, and then we just kind of like navigate it. And the ease and like spaciousness that feels just feels really grounded in trust.
Mhm. Yeah.
Were you hearing all those dings?
No.
Good. I just got 13 emails from us. Okay. Let me see. Do not disturb. Okay. Ruby, how are you feeling grateful for me?
I feel very grateful for the quality that you have of just really leaning into wherever you are and whatever the circumstances, and like making it like fun and enjoyable and like yours, as much as possible. And I think, it's been really nice to see you have space to do more of like for yourself in that way. And so I'm just really grateful for yeah, I'm trying to make the gratitude vague, but really it's all very specific, like Kate recently moved into her childhood home in Virginia, and there's a
Wow.
shared album that she created, which is just really hilarious to me, because you just got to check it to see if she's updated anything. And she's just been putting
You
videos
don't
of
get
like
a notification.
a vlog of her life. And I just feel so grateful for, yeah, I guess like partly the way that you share yourself with others, and with me specifically. I love getting to be part of it. And the way that you just like, I don't know exactly how to say it, but like you have just like a playful disposition with life. And so I love like you're just like, I'm making bread, and like, this wasn't the recipe, but now we've got some focaccia with some honey or something, and who knows if it's gonna turn out or whatever. And I'm making quail because my dad brought it over, but like I don't know what that means. And it's just I feel so grateful for that openness that you possess, and just like enjoyment and play with
Well,
whatever
thanks,
comes up in your
Ruby.
life. Or today, you're like, I buy blueberries. I don't really eat blueberries, and they were kind of mushy, so I made tea.
Look, I have this really pretty, like, it's this. Let me see if I can pour it in front of the camera so that you can really see the pretty color. Oh no, maybe I drank it
Oh,
all.
oh,
Can you
it's
see that color?
beautiful.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I think, I mean, yes, I think I've always been like a little bit like that, but I also will say I have this friend named Taylor, Ruby, that was my friend Taylor. And Taylor and I met each other, I think in 2016. He started coming to the gym, and there is a freedom to Taylor, and like Taylor takes enjoyment like really seriously. Like he's going to enjoy things, and things are going to be comfortable, and he's going to do the extra 45 seconds of work to make something like that much better. And instead of making something like just fine. And I love that about Taylor. And that is like a way that his like freedom, I think, has like really rubbed off on me. Like, yeah, why do I have to get sourdough bread down exactly right until I start making it like my own, like with the ingredients that I want to use? And like, why don't I get to do the trial and error part? Cause like, I like that part. Like, I like learning lessons like that. I don't like to just find exactly the right recipe and then now I have it. I like to like learn the things along the way. And I guess maybe also too, like, Lily, my niece, children do that. They like really learn things as they go, and it's because they play. And I love that. I'll never be able to make that bread again, but
Was it
you
good?
know, yeah, one of them was really good and one of them was really not good. But then I used some of those tips and tricks in my recent English sourdough English muffins, because I learned some things about that bread. Yeah. Thanks, Ruby.
Yeah. What about for work? How are you feeling grateful for work?
You know that quote from the Alchemist that's about the universe being on your team?
Conspiring for you? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that the universe conspires. Oh my God, what is it? The universe conspires with
In
you
your
when
favor.
Yeah. Like when you're on your right path, the universe like wants to help you do what you're meant to be doing, basically. Anyways, I feel like that with our work. Like I feel um an alignment that feels like at ease and that also feels fun and playful and um like we get to learn along the way and like we get to make up random things and then we get to add this and subtract this like as we figure it out. I guess I'm grateful that our work feels the way that I like for my life to feel and that it has like those elements of like learning and also like purposefulness and autonomy. Like autonomy is such a big one to me, I think. And I just really feel that in our work. And I feel like our work sometimes can be like an out of body experience for me because I really do feel like, you know, how we talk about like how we have this sense sometimes where we're just like the vessel for something. Like I'm like, we like, yeah, I get that we have like made it all up and that we've put the curriculum together and that like it really is like of us, but also it doesn't really feel that way. It kind of just feels like things that just like come up and through onto paper, into the journal, into the podcast, into the entire self-study program. You know, those are all things that just like came up and they all seem to come like right at the right time. And I just have a big sense of like trust for our work and that feels so good.
Mm. What I love about that too is that like we have really been patient and present for our work.
Yes, that's true. We really have been.
Because we've been working together since 2015.
Yeah. And we've just let the timing evolve as it has.
Wow. Thank you for the coffee.
Yeah, the internet's first glimpse. That's lovely. What kind of coffee are you all ritualizing these days?
This is an Ecuadorian bean that we got from we have a coffee subscription that we get every month that Jake got us for Christmas last year. And we recently got a Burr coffee grinder. And then even more recently, we went ahead and got a gooseneck electric kettle. And we do it in the pour over. And so we are just really feeling fancy over here with our coffee ritual.
I love that. And you have new mugs.
Yeah, these are our new mugs. They remind me of like a honey pot.
Yeah, that's very cute. They sure do. I was going to ask, you know, I'm somebody who really like, I really feel through all my mugs before I pick the one that's right. And what I will say is that right now my mug cabinet is full of mugs that are not speaking to me. So
we're going to have to fix that.
I'm going to have to make some changes because I've been really touching them and like, I'm like, the cup does not exist for me in here. This is the one that does fit for me though today.
I do love that one. That's a good one.
But the mug feel is so important.
And also like the energy that it gives. You know, this is a very like Sunday mug.
Yes. I know exactly what you mean. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, how are you feeling grateful for our work?
Okay. I feel grateful for the like it's kind of like multi-part faceted. But like I feel really grateful for like the motivation and conviction I feel towards our work. And then I feel really grateful for the fun that we have in our work and that I have in our work when I let myself. And so yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I've started this like other job situation thing. I'm like starting to teach yoga again. I'm helping facilitate trainings for a studio in Colorado Springs. And anyway, I started this week and my schedule has been like crazy because I'm supposed to work like 30 hours a week for them. And then also this is my important work. So I feel really grateful that it's so clear that like this is my important work. And honestly, even though this week has been like bonkers busy, it has been awesome. And I feel really grateful for the ways that, honestly, like where we are in our lives. And also I miss being on the same time zone, and it's kind of helpful at this particular phase that you're 2 hours ahead. And it just gives me, it feels like it gives me a few more hours in my day. And so like I loved, like we recorded another episode like earlier this week, and kind of just like fast and furious. Like I was like, this is the amount of time I have, but I'm ready. And I love like the motivation that our work gives me, that I can be like, we're doing it right now. And like, because I care so much about it, I can just like turn it on and lean in.
We do a lot of that. Like one of us will have the call, and we call and we go like, hey, okay, we were planning to do this thing at 2. Does that still feel good today? Or does it need to shift, or like whatever? And if it's like, yes, this is the time that I have to do it this week, I want to do it. I need a snack. I need some coffee, but yeah, I'm ready. That we do always really like, it's easy for us to like land in it. And that feels so nice.
Yeah. And I guess like part of that is the gratitude I have for like you said, like this work, it doesn't feel like from us, but it is of us. And so like, because it is like a part of me, and like the fact that we do it together is like a part of me, there's like this intrinsic motivation, and like, I don't know, it makes it feel very natural. And even when I feel like stuck, maybe energetically, or stuck in like, oh my God, I have to create another piece of content, with a little bit of like space and self-nurturing there, it's easy for that to like open back up.
Totally. Yes. What you're speaking to, like, it's like sometimes I do have to get almost like a running start. You know, I'm like, no, I do have a time limit on this thing, because I do have to do this thing, because we are going to post it on this day, and this is just how it's going to go. But once I can like get into the fact that that is what I'm doing, normally there's no like barrier for me like getting in the flow of doing that thing.
Yeah, like one more example, because it's just been a wild week. But the other day I was like, it'd been a really busy day. My family's going through some stuff. There's just a lot of energy and emotion going on. Plus I've got this work and our work, and I was feeling kind of grumpy, and we all wanted to go for a walk, but also I was feeling kind of grumpy. And I even told everyone, I was like, I feel irritable. It's nobody's fault. I have no idea why. Like, I don't know. And Jake was like, do you know where the Skittles are? Maybe you should have a Skittle. And y'all should know that what we call Skittles are these pill edibles that are just like 2.5 milligrams of THC and CBD, and then they have some caffeine in them anyway. I was like, sure, yeah.
Pill edibles.
I took a yellow Skittle and we went on a walk, and then I got back and I was like, I've got shit to do. Like, yes, I can do this to-do list for the Duality Project, because it's not that hard, and I can just sit down and focus for an hour, and I can get these emails edited and scheduled, and it is done.
Yeah. And I'll feel so good afterwards. I never feel drained after doing, I mean,
that part. I mean, yes, of course.
But I never feel like yucky drain.
Yeah. And so it's easy to feel motivated to do our work, because
totally
it feels fulfilling. Yeah.
Wow. I know I have really had some moments recently where I'm like, not a single person I know has like, in like the house that I'm living in, and like the way that my life feels right now, like I don't know a single other person whose life, I guess that's me comparing myself to other people. I am really luxuriating in the actual luxury that I am living in right now. And that feels, I'm really like leaning into getting to appreciate like my way of life right now.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah. And our work is part of that. Who gets to feel fulfilled in their work? Not a lot of people. And ew.
Wow. Yeah, that has always been a non-negotiable for us.
Truly it has been. Okay.
You want to tell us about the theme for the day? I know we could go on about gratitude like all day. So
all day.
Let's shift gears.
Like,
what's the theme?
The sun is like coming through these windows. Okay. The theme is compassion. It's time for compassion. Our last theme was rest. And the reason rest had to happen definitely was because we had set all these boundaries. And the reason that boundaries happened was because of freedom.
well, we had the courage that like gave access to freedom. And then sometimes, like freedom feels like, whoa. And then boundaries are like, okay, let's channel this and like keep the freedom and honor ourselves. But then boundaries are exhausting. And then after we rest, there's actually like space, like that deep breath space for like, okay, compassion.
Yeah. Can I share something with you from a client from this week? Okay, so I had
Yeah.
a client who used a visual that like I really loved. I kind of just was asking her like, what are you doing? Why are you here? What kind of things do you want to talk about? And she was like, I feel like this tight little like ball of yarn all the time, just like squeezed all together. You can hardly even unravel the yarn at all because it's all just like super tightly wound. And like as we're going to continue to talk about the yarn, like one thing I said was like, okay, listen, I feel like a lot of people come to a self-study practice, or they come to therapy, or they come to self-help, or they come to self-improvement, or they go to yoga or whatever, because somewhere along the line, they've gotten this narrative that like you are too tightly wound up in some kind of way. And the opposite of that is to now completely unravel in every single way, and then to just be like sprawled all out all over the place. And the compassionate way to meet a really tightly wound up ball of yarn is it to start yanking on it from every single direction so that it will unravel. It is to kind of like move it around and like get a little bit more space in there and allow it to kind of like fluff up so that then when you do come to a knot, you're more easily able to like get in there and untie it and figure out where the strings are and stuff. So like that's just how I'm like really feeling about compassion, is that compassion isn't like, it's not fixing and rearranging. It's like meeting it where it's at and then maybe becoming a little bit more mobile or a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more flexible or a little bit more open, relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
malleable.
Yeah, I love that compassion comes here like as like one of the final themes in the self-study practice, because it does like loop back to the very beginning of presence and acceptance, but then it like adds the emotional intelligence layer of experience, right? So because like you practice presence and acceptance, but then you've also been through all these other themes and like paid attention to that in your life. And then finally there's like again, I'll speak to like a depth. There's like a depth to compassion that like takes presence and acceptance and then says, okay, and I can like really settle into there being room for these things.
Yeah, that's settling into there being space. Yes. That feels so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, obviously, before we dive into the theme, we have to do our housekeeping. So Ruby, what do you want to tell everyone about? There's no right answer.
I want to tell everyone about the sweatshirt that we're wearing.
Okay.
If you are watching on the video, obviously you're looking at it. If you're not, it is this cute beige suede crew neck sweatshirt. We're both, that's what they call the description, but it's basically like the way it's designed.
Really good.
It's literally an inside out sweatshirt. The fleece is on the outside. And we're both wearing mediums and they're like perfectly oversized. And they have this cute little embroidered ditty that says, "Stay soft." Yes, thank you, Kate. And it's new in the shop. And you can go to the You're Doing Great store and get one for yourself.
And you know what's really cute about this little thing is it's almost like a little ball of yarn.
Oh, it is
it's
so
like
floofy.
A little kitty ball of yarn, and it's fluffy and yeah, cute. Okay, so that's a You're Doing Great shop where you can go get all sorts of wonderful little things. Oh, where's my journal? I'm a mess. I've just moved into a new place, so my journal is in a different room now.
Anyways, it's okay. Find your journal.
Okay.
Yeah, find your journal. Along with like the shop, just like a shop announcement, is that we will have some new stuff coming in February that is all about self-love, self-care, self-compassion, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, whatever February. Also just getting through the rest of winter. We'll have some merch that can cozy you up and remind you to stay present with yourself.
And not only that, but this is in direct relation to Heartland, our next announcement. If you're a member of Heartland, you get a discount in the shop.
Dun, 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 dun.
But before we tell you that, let me show you these cute stickers.
Oh my God, my stickers haven't come in yet. Wow, I'm feeling
Wow.
jealous. Cute.
Look at them. And here's
Wow.
our cute little kitty.
If you're just listening, you're just gonna have to go to the video and like see, or go onto the store and you can see the sticker set. But when you, the first, what did we decide? The first 20 people who sign up for Heartland are gonna get a sticker sheet that we'll just send to you.
For freezies. Because you got your water bottle with the stickers and you got your laptop with the stickers. So that's where the stickers go. I mean, honestly, anywhere you want. But then look at my journal.
Oh.
It's the working on myself one. And I
I
just love it.
that.
I love this. I love a spiral bound. Oh, I love a spiral bound book because of the way that it's
open it all the way up.
I love that. Okay. So Heartland though. Ruby, can you tell us the deets of Heartland? Heartland is our virtual online community space.
And it's meant to be a place for connection, right? Like social interaction. So the way I've been thinking about it is like, just, stop doom scrolling and instead get on Heartland, where you can connect with people who are actually interested in doing this work and, like want to connect and grow together. So Heartland is a social platform. You get your first 7 days free, and then it's only $7 a month after that. And you get 24/7 access from your laptop or your mobile app. You get, weekly discussion prompts in our discussion forum. You get quarterly movement exercises. You get workshops with us. The first one is coming up. I'm pausing because will this be out before January 23rd?
Sorry, hold on. Sorry, something crazy is happening on my end.
Are you good?
I started talking, Jess called. So then it took me out of my headphones into my phone. And then the second her call ended, the last thing I was listening to, sometimes I listen to our podcast on 3.5 times speed. And so then it was and then you were trying to say something, but all I was hearing, and I couldn't figure out if it was coming from my phone or my computer. So yeah, that's what I've been going through. So now, what's been happening for you?
Will this episode be released before January 23rd?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll do it this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get quarterly workshops in Heartland. The first one is January 23rd. We're doing a 2023 intention setting workshop where we will go through choosing a word for the year. And even if you already have a word, this is a great workshop to attend because we're going to spend time in that, do some journaling, do some connecting. So we'll have some meetups in Heartland. There'll be challenges. There'll be movement exercises. We're in there sharing what's going on. There will be bonus extra podcast episodes where we're just whatever. Honestly, you can request what topic you want. And we're really excited about some other stuff too. Down the line, we definitely want to do some meetups that are free one-on-one coaching. So yeah, get in there. It's $7 a month, but your first week's free. You can sign up now. You probably got the email already in your inbox that today, just now, Heartland has opened. Get in there. And probably one of the biggest perks too, I'm all over the place, but I would be remiss to forget to mention the daily diary, my self-study practice journal. It's a virtual journal. It asks, actually, I have it pulled up because we were working on it this morning, and it does, we told you last week, it talks, or on the last episode, it talks about feelings and needs, but then it also asks some really cool, just daily prompts. Proceed. That's not it. Pause.
And something that you'll note is because you're here in the self-study podcast, the actual self-study curriculum is something like the 10 themes are things that Ruby and I have been doing for years. And so what I'm trying to point out here is the beauty and the depth that is offered with answering the same questions consistently. Like to continue getting curious about this one thing over and over and over and over for years and years and years. So like sometimes I think it's like we feel like, oh, I already know how I feel. It's like, well, how else do you feel? What else? You know? So there's a lot of value in doing something consistently that's just the same.
Well, so it talks about in the journal, it asks you how you're feeling, and then there's like a checklist. What do you need? There's a place to write anything extra. What are you getting present to? There's a place to free write. What are you grateful for today? What do you give yourself permission for? And then there's a place to upload like an image. So if you want to take a picture of your journal entry that was handwritten, or you want to add a picture. And it also asks like what your energy level is. And it's just like a great check-in. And then one of the coolest features is that then it loads into the calendar feature. And so then you can literally search back through the calendar to a previous entry. So we beta tested this with the 2020 self-study program. And so I can go back to March, 24th, 2021. Is that right? Yeah. And like, I give myself permission to choose pleasure and ease and patience and breath. And like, you can go see the whole entry and where you were and what you were doing and like track back without having to go find last year's journal somewhere on the shelves or in the boxes.
Yeah. And also like what a cool thing to be able to do to give yourself some structure for like, this is growth. Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So get in there. Heartland is launched. We're so thrilled to be in there with you. It's something we've been wanting to do for years. Totally. And I'm so happy that it's finally here.
Yeah. And the first workshop is on January the 23rd. At what time?
6 p.m. Eastern.
Incredible. Great. Okay, along with Heartland, also applications are open for the self-study program that begins in March. There are 4 cohorts. You're like, oh my God, what? I've been listening to this podcast and I know that there are only 3. Come on, Kate. Actually, incorrect, because you're listening to the self-study podcast with Kate and Ruby, and Kate and Ruby decided to add another one. So now there are 4.
It's part of our and.
Yeah, so like yes, and we were so excited to create the specific 3 cohorts that we made, and we got requests from quite a few other people who asked us like, hey, where do I fit in this? Because I want to do it. And so introducing the 4th cohort is the all y'all cohort. So there's the cohort for parents, which by the way is not a parent's course, like a course for parenting. It's a course where you do your self-study practice, and also you are a parent and you want to do your self-study practice alongside other people who are parents. But we won't be going like, this is how you should become a better parent. That's not what we're doing. There's also the cohort for therapists and coaches, and same thing. This isn't teaching you how to be a better therapist or coach. This is holding space for people who work in helping professionals, coaches, therapists, people who hold space in that kind of way for other people. This is a space for those people to come together and do their self-study practice. We also have the cohort for 20 somethings, again, not a course on how to successfully do your 20s, because I guess the long and short of it is that that's not even a real thing. So you're already doing great. Can't wait to have you in that cohort. And then the 4th one is the cohort for all y'all. It's just for all y'all. You want to add anything, baby?
The only thing I'll add is that the cohort for parents, if both parents are interested, and we would advise that yes, then you can both do the program together under the one enrollment. And then also in the 20 somethings cohort, we encourage you to sign up with a buddy, because this work is just, especially at that age, done. It just is very helpful to have a friend alongside you. And so if you and a buddy enroll as each other's buddy, you both get half off. So it's like a BOGO, buy one for the, like, get two for the price of one. So sign up with a friend.
Buy one, bring a buddy. Bob Bubba. So
Bob
yeah,
Ab.
there's the Baba deal going on the 20 somethings.
Get your Baba.
Get your Baba. Did you ever? Anyways, never mind. You know that guy Jeff Dunham, who's we don't Jeff Dunham. Anyways. Okay. Also, okay. I think
Let's
we
get
covered
right
all
in
the
there.
housekeeping on the list.
I think we've covered a lot.
Okay. Classic. Okay. Then let's talk about compassion, huh?
Let's do it.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Something that compassion does. Okay. First, hold on. I really want to talk about the word nurture, because I think that this idea of nurturing, I think, is often misunderstood and also misrepresented, to be like that there's no like, well, let me just read you the definition of nurture. The definition of nurture is the process of caring for and encouraging the growth or development of someone or something. One more time. Nurture is defined as the process of caring for and encouraging the growth or development of someone or something. So like, you nurture plants so that they survive. You nurture your friendships so that they survive and thrive. You nurture your relationships, again, survival and thrival, which is what we're going for. And I think that we think of nurture, especially when it comes to like nurturing yourself or like nurturing another adult, is that like, if you're too soft or too nurturing or whatever to other adults, then they'll just become like lazy and not productive. And, you know, you're like babying them and they like won't ever grow up. And so, yeah, I just wanted to start this off by being like, that's actually not at all what nurturing does. Nurturing actually is part of what creates the space for us to evolve and grow and become and like show up more fully and yeah, like become who we are. So like a huge part of compassion is a practice and a necessary part of nurturing. So if you intend on growing or developing in any kind of way, nurture has to be there, and part of nurture is compassion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that, because what I think what you're speaking to is the way that nurture can get confused with enabling or like doing for.
Baby.
And I love in the definition how it says, you know, it's the process of caring for and encouraging the growth, and how that's so different than the energy of enabling or babying or like doing for, or even, you know, like parenting, the way that it happens sometimes in like relationships, you know, how when like one takes on like the role of like the parent in the adult relationship, and that actual nurturing is different than that. Actual nurturing is a healthy caring for and encouragement of growth and development, and that feels very different than the like entanglement or enmeshment of doing for or enabling or babying.
Totally. Okay, can I share something that comes up for me when you talk about how, like you were saying earlier in the gratitudes, you were talking about how you're practicing like receiving help. I am somebody, you'll probably surprised to hear this, but I am somebody who's gotten feedback over the years in certain relationships, like, Kate, I want, like, you're not very good at letting, you have to help, you let other people help you. And I really, I've had a really hard time with like that, because my experience, and I really like learned this last summer. I was trying to do something and somebody was like, why don't you just let so and so who already knows how to do this help you? And I was like, because I want to be able to do it. I want to learn how to do this thing. I want to figure out how this thing can happen. So the way that the other person was defining that person as helping me was doing it for me. Like, Kate, why don't you just let this person who already knows how to do it for me? But when it comes to like caring for and encouraging my growth and development, that means that I need to have hands-on. For me, like, that's how I learn things. Like, if you want to help me, what you can stand next to me and you can go, okay, here's why this next step is important. Like, so first do this. And, so like, if you want to teach me how to do it, that often is what feels like help. But the way that help has often been showed to me or offered to me is, you need to let other people do it for you. But a lot of times when I'm trying to learn something new, what feels so good to me is learning something new and then feeling that sense of like, wow, I just accomplished this thing that I was trying to do. And then I get to feel proud of myself for that. So in the conversation of like, okay, Kate, you need to let people help you. Something that I've learned how to do is distinguish whether or not, like, is it that I don't want this person to help me do it? Is it that this person's trying to take over this thing that I want to do and actually I want to do it? Or am I having like a control thing and I just want to be in control of this space? So there's a lot of nuance for me when it comes to like receiving help. And me feeling I like to feel capable. And sometimes I recognize that I don't want to ask for help because I want to learn how to do it myself, because that's how I nurture my sense of capability. And like, yeah, sometimes that goes too far. And then it's like, Kate, you're capable of doing like literally everything. And where's your community or whatever. But like, anyway, that just came up for me as you were talking about help.
Well, in the way that like in the story that I shared in my gratitude, like me allowing specifically like Jake to help logistically by like going and picking up my mom from the airport was a way that she felt cared for. I got to feel cared for. And also it encourages the growth and development for me that I like surrender that and like let someone else do what I really wanted to be like my role and support, but I actually didn't have the capacity for.
Yeah.
And how that's different than like what you're, like you're talking about. I mean, in that situation, I think I know what you're talking about. And the person is kind of the kind of person who's just like, just like let them help, or like, why can't you do it this way or whatever? And
totally.
That's not nurturing.
But also, I guess like kind of what I'm speaking to is in that moment, like the most compassionate thing for you to do for both you and everyone involved in the situation of your mom needed to be picked up from the airport was to go, hey, Jake, can you pick mom up from the airport? And sometimes the most compassionate thing to do is to go like, hey, actually, I am doing this thing myself. I appreciate you offering your help. And if I would like to have it, I will come and ask you for it. I appreciate that it has been offered. And so, yeah.
I think like taking out the, I think like just taking out the doing it for each other, that's where we're like, we put things on to people about like how they should be or how it should go. And I'm like, even thinking about like parenting specifically, like the difference between like doing all your kids' laundry, like all the way through high school and like doing it, putting it away for them, and how that is like a caring thing to do. It's not the most nurturing thing to do. The most nurturing thing to do would be to like teach them to do the laundry with you, and then like help them put it away, and then they know how to do it and where it goes, and then by the time they're a senior in high school, they should be doing their own laundry or helping with the household laundry, so that when they go to college, they know how to be an adult. And that's nurturing.
Yes. Yes. Compassion is where empathy meets the willingness to radically be with suffering. So even let's put that in, I think that's a Tara Brach definition. Like even like as far as like the laundry goes, right? So like, okay, a lot of the suffering that we see when it comes to like living with other people in household is that there's like it's just like inequitable. So where one person is doing way more than another person in whatever kind of way it is, that is like a specific kind of suffering that comes along with like being in a household with other people. Empathy says everyone has laundry. We all have to do the laundry. Most people I know don't like doing the laundry. And then the willingness to radically be with the suffering says, it's really important though, for all of us to do the laundry. And I'm going to teach you how to do yours so that you will always have this skill to both support yourself and your own laundry and the other people in your household who will also be having laundry. And whether the kid kicks and screams then about having to do laundry is just part of that like passing stuff that's going to happen when we have to learn how to do something new.
In the same way that like, I don't know, like you said, I don't know very many people who like to do laundry. So the first time you live on your own, there's some internal kicking and screaming about doing the laundry. Like you let it pile up, you like let it stay dirty, like whatever. And then you're like, shit, I gotta do the laundry. Like it's like that, parenting with like parent and child is just an external representation so often of like what I feel like I've also experienced it within myself.
Yes, totally. And then it's also like, okay, so then you're fresh into college or whatever, you're fresh out of your household, I don't know, and you are in a situation where you're having that internal kicking and screaming. Thank goodness now, if someone has taught you some skills or set some boundaries around the rules of being in a household together, you don't have to start at square one, which is like, how do I even do laundry? Like you actually already have the tools at your fingertips to do what needs to be done. And that eases suffering, to have the tools and to have the access to what you need: laundry detergent, a washer dryer.
Yeah, and that's something that's like, it's sometimes I love that we're using the analogy of laundry. It's sometimes challenging to know like what's the difference between like what is the compassionate thing to do, you know? And like I think it's easy to get confused about that, you know, like the compassionate thing to do is like to totally care for this person or whatever, when really it's like the compassionate thing to do is that I can nurture, which means like, yes, be available to care for, but also encourage the growth and development of, and be with the resistance or
yes. And so much of the time we want to take away the suffering. Like, that was
and we think that that's
way
compassion.
That I was taught how to care. And we think that that's yes. A lot of us defined compassion as taking away suffering, but kind of just like the deal with life is that like suffering exists. So if we're moving through the world going like, I'm a compassionate person and my definition of compassion means that I take away suffering of other people, you are honestly and respectfully, that ain't true. You're not taking away the suffering of other people, because that's not something that we can do.
And you're not responsible
living in
for
a lie. Yeah.
And you'll never be successful because the suffering exists. It is part of the human experience, condition, like whatever you want to call it. And it is our own responsibility in our own lives to like navigate that, both our own suffering, like internally and in relationship. But it's not like your responsibility to take away someone else's suffering. And even to like add to that, you know, like it sucks to say, and I wish it wasn't true, but it's just like challenging things happen in life. And in my experience, those most challenging things, which were and caused suffering were also huge growth opportunities and like made me a softer, kinder, better, more hopeful person. And to think that it's your responsibility to take away someone else's suffering, consider that you're taking away those opportunities. Like, first of all, you can't do that, but second of all, even if you could, it would be robbing them of the life experiences that are available for them, and therefore it would be getting in the way of the nurturing of that person.
Yeah. Yes. Can we talk a little bit about the difference between what is empathy and what is compassion? How they're different?
Yeah, let's do that.
Something that I really loved just getting really clear on when I was writing about anger for our blog, which by the way, check out the blog on thedualityproject.com. There's some great articles up there. But I was writing about, anger and like what it feels like in our bodies and all of that kind of stuff. And then a main thing that like really landed for me was that empathy is by nature, empathy shows us the depths that we can go to within ourselves. So like our depth of capacity for empathy shows us how in tune we are with like our bodies. Because somatically, like as in like, okay, so say somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm having this thing at work, I feel wildly like I don't belong and completely incapable. In order for me to do empathy with that person, I have to have access to a time in my life where I've also felt like I totally don't belong and totally incapable. And so then like, it doesn't have to be the same situation. And I don't even need to share with that person. Oh yeah, I had this situation and I felt that way too. You'll be fine. I feel like that's a lot of the ways that we do empathy. We say like, oh, well, I've totally felt that way too. And you'll be fine. And it's like, technically, empathy is saying to the other person, like, I have also felt that way. And sometimes it can be like, I've had moments where I've like shared something and I feel so alone and feeling that way. And then somebody else like, hey, I feel that way too. Or that very same thing has happened to me too. Wow, I thought it hadn't happened to me either. Like, hello, the Me Too movement, and how empowering has it been for an entire generation of women to know that same thing has happened to me too. That's an incredible thing that has like brought us all together. Compassion though. Okay. So say you're a therapist and say every single one of your clients is somebody who has had this really horrible traumatic experience, and they're just coming to you and over and over and over, they're sharing these traumatic situations with you where they felt trapped. It's maybe not so helpful every single time to say like, I have felt trapped before too. And then to really go there and like feel into that sense, which would be empathy. Compassion can say, I'm here with you now. Let's talk, like to radically be with the suffering, not like deep down in it, just like with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like empathy is, like you said, being able to identify within yourself, whether you verbalize that or just energetically bring that forward, like that you felt a similar way. And then I know I've often felt like I can feel someone's empathy, right? Like I can really sense or tell, like, do they mean it? Like, do they see me? It makes me feel seen. And then compassion is
sometimes, unless they just start talking about their own shit. And then
then I don't really feel like they're doing empathy when, like, you know what I mean? Like talking about it is like one surface level. And then I feel like empathy though is being able to like allow yourself to take a moment and like remember what that person is sharing with you felt like for you. And therefore there's like an energy to hold that space. And then compassion is where that, I guess it is like an emotional intelligence. Empathy is part of emotional intelligence. Meets a willingness, to actually be with the suffering. And like, let's talk a little bit more about what that means and how that's like different than just sitting with someone in empathy. And I think like part of that is like like you said, like bringing in like, and I'm here with you now. So like, yes, I felt like that before, and we're both here together now. So what is really present? And maybe sometimes that's some sort of like problem solving to happen, or like strategizing. And sometimes it's though just like acknowledging and then like being in the present suffering that you both know is existing.
Mhm. Yeah, which is why one of the most compassionate things that we can do for ourselves and for each other is to know what our feelings and needs are, so that we can say things like, wow, Ruby, it sounds like you're having a really hard day. As your friend, how can I be here with you? How, like, do you want me to just listen to this? Are you wanting me to help you like find some creative ways to like solve this? Do you want to brainstorm? Do you want me to listen? Do you want to go on a walk? Do you want to go out for cocktails and talk about it at the bar? Like, how can I be with this suffering in the best way? That's a big part of what compassion asks us to ask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In a way, okay. And then so the very next part that's really important about compassion is Jack Kornfield says, if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. And so something that I've certainly gotten stuck in the past is doing this thing where I've thought that I've been being like outwardly compassionate, like I'm being compassionate towards the other person, but not considering like, what do I have the capacity for, or like what is okay for me and what is not okay for me. So even as a friend, like when you're offering or when you're asking the person like, hey, how can I be with you? What, like if I were to say to Ruby, if she was calling me in a big thing and I said, would it be so helpful if I flew out today and then met you and had a drink at the bar later? And she was like, yes. I don't have the fucking capacity for that. Like I'm across the country. Like I can't just fly out there and have a cocktail with her. But like, but if she's like, yeah, I would like for us to be together, it'd be like, okay, could we cook dinner together over Zoom, or something? Like, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be the same thing, but that's when like the creativity gets going to meet both people's capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you're speaking to that, because I feel like sometimes it's easy for us to like think we're practicing compassion when someone like comes to us, and then I don't know, this has just happened to me in like my younger years. Sometimes like I would call an adult in my life and be like, this is what I'm going through, and like this is what I need. And then like after they're like, what do you need? And I'm like, this is the support that I need. And then they're like, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. And then that's like it's just like, I can't do that, but I can do this totally other unrelated thing that you didn't ask for, that we haven't talked about, that I've just decided is the thing that you probably maybe could take. And that is like not helpful. And it's not
No,
meeting and like navigating the suffering together. Because
totally.
but it is totally reasonable, right? That like someone might say like, I hear that feels like what you need the most, and I don't have the capacity for that, and I still want to support you. So like, can we brainstorm together like another way to get you that support, or to navigate this together?
Yeah. Or like, hey, I really hear that you want to go have drinks with somebody. I wish I could be there. Could we call somebody else? Who else could you call that's there that
Mhm.
you could go with?
Mhm.
Yeah. And also, question or responses like that, because that's happened to me a lot in my professional career, where somebody has gone, hey, Kate, so great. We want to partner with you. We love everything that you're doing. Do you have a photographer that you like to use? Yeah, I totally do. And I'm really specific about which photographer I use, and here's why I use here, and blah, blah, blah. Cool, great. That sounds so awesome. We actually have this other photographer that we like to use. Oh, okay. Okay, well, are we going to be using that photographer? Or are we going to use my photographer that like I already know and like, and also I told you all these specific reasons that I use her. So like, does your photographer do all that stuff? Or like, so things like that are just like giving somebody the illusion of like this false sense of control. And that is a manipulative tactic.
Mhm.
And it's bullshit, to be honest. I
And
hate
it's
when
not
people do that.
compassionate.
It's not compassionate.
But I do love we have another Tara Brock quote a little bit further down in our notes, and like it speaks to how we were talking about like what is compassion versus empathy. And she says, the fullness of compassion also includes action. So not only do we attune ourselves to the presence of suffering, but we respond to it. And so in those like missed opportunities, I think there is good intention to do the compassion. And then the miss though is in the actual like response, like clear and present response to the suffering. Instead, it's very like, okay, yeah, like the same thing happens all the time. I feel like when people want to like give back to like charity or like give back
Totally.
to people in the community who have like bigger needs, and then it's like, well, the need is blankets, and then people are like, well, I don't have blankets, but here are some canned collard greens.
Totally. Or the need is systemic change. How are you voting? And then they're like, again, canned collard greens. And you're like, no, that won't do it. No. Yeah. Like such a good point is that people know what they need. People, especially people in communities know what they need. The best way to respond to what they need is first ask and then do it.
Okay, and then like to circle back to like what is self-compassion, it can, and I feel like we've talked about this in a previous episode a little bit, but like it can be, it's understandable that it can be very challenging to be compassionate towards others and like meeting and taking action to alleviate their suffering from this like relational standpoint if you have never experienced self-compassion and like actually having your own needs met by yourself or by others. And so like there can be a disconnect in that like understanding of why can't you take the canned collard greens? Like I hear that you need blankets, but like why can't these collard greens also be helpful?
Yeah.
If you've never experienced actually having like the being able to identify the need that you have and then actually have the self-compassion to meet yourself and meet that need, there can be that disconnect.
Yep. Totally.
Okay, well, Kate, what does compassion towards others feel like for you?
Well, how about can I tell you what compassion towards others used to feel like for me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was really good at doing compassion because that would mean like, and I can recognize this pattern like all through high school. I remember one time, so I went through the Montessori school, K-8, which I loved. And one time this girl really wanted my pen. And I think she probably just like took it from me and she just like took my pen, and maybe the teacher intervened or something. Cause I don't remember thinking that this was a big deal at all. I just remember thinking like, she took my pen, and she might've even traded me a pen. But then I do remember the Montessori school teacher sat us down and really made the two of us talk about our feelings together. And I felt like, I thought that the teacher was making like way too big of a deal out of it. But now I really appreciate her giving me that space to really check in with like, am I legitimately okay with this? Because I think like a narrative that I was taught was like, you need to be okay with it. Like this kind of thing is going to happen. People are going to want your stuff. People are going to take it, and you should be kind and generous, and you need to share. And so there's a lot of my life where I haven't like checked in with like, am I actually okay with this? And the way that that showed up in my business was that I would bend over backwards to either create new systems for like, say I got a new employee and they were like, hey, this certain thing, like, I don't like her, whatever. I would like overhaul the system. And like, long story short, it just led to burnout because there were lots of reasons that I had made the system the way that it was in the beginning, and me continuously bending over backwards, breaking my systems, then I guess it almost felt like everybody thought they got to have a piece of me, and I was letting them have it. And then eventually I was kind of like, where am I in this at all? And that's what it felt like to do compassion for other people. It felt like, which like now I can really recognize and be honest about how like I get that that's not actually compassion, because then where am I in the rest of it? And so like now what compassion feels like for me is, okay, I have a new roommate who I'm loving, and she's very much like, hey, like I made this and I want you to have some, or like you're welcome to share this with me, or like whatever. But then when I have said back to her, like, yeah, I have that, that's in the fridge, like of course you can have some of that, and she's like, oh, I don't want to use your stuff. The compassionate thing that I have said to her is, if you want us to have open and sharing community in this house, then that has to go both ways. Like if I'm using your stuff and you never use my stuff, eventually I know that I won't feel good about using your stuff, and then I'll start to go, what, whose is whose and what is what, and we don't know how to share, and there's not like this sense of like trust in reciprocity. So I have already said, like, I appreciate that you offer things to me all the time. It's only going to work out if you also take what I have to offer too. Like, and you don't have to do it if you don't like if you don't want that thing, but like if you need an egg and I have eggs, like literally, of course you can use an egg, because I've already used 2 of yours because you told me that I could, so like that felt compassionate to me, because I know that I don't like to feel like somebody's keeping score. And so if somebody else is keeping score, but I don't want to have to keep score myself, then I still need to show up in this situation. So that's a way that it feels now, instead of being like, I don't know. It just felt it felt inequitable before I said that. And now it feels like it can be equitable.
Mhm.
And so that's more how I do compassion now. And even though the two of us have extremely different financial access, so there's like a hierarchy of class already, almost, or something. And like that's a way in which sometimes I can lean into doing that like martyrdom thing, when I'm like, oh, I have more access, so I should give beyond my means. But that doesn't really create equity within the systems, and it doesn't create equity in the friendship either, in
And it
that
doesn't feel,
specific
yeah, it doesn't
relationship dynamic.
feel good as a person,
Mm-mm.
right? Like as humans, we generally, as a whole, as a species, like to contribute. We generally want to do our part. We typically feel best when there is like something, if I'm receiving something, there's also something I can offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And like also in the very same breath, like last night, like I've been sick and in the bed, when I came down, there was some dinner waiting for me. And also I really wanted to cook a big meal. I wanted to cook. I wanted that to be like what I was doing that night. So I said, thank you so much for cooking this. And also, I really want to cook tonight. And I'd love to eat that for lunch tomorrow.
Mhm.
So I'm still met my needs, even though I know that she wanted to give that to me, and I appreciated that. And also I wanted to cook.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does compassion feel like towards yourself?
Mm. I always have some kind of little like spidey sense when I've overextended myself, or when um I guess a telltale sign for me, which is like that I haven't been like considering myself, is that I feel taken advantage of. And um so compassion towards myself feels like going, okay, well, if I want to be generous and kind and compassionate here, and also I don't want to feel resentful, and also I don't want to feel like I'm being taken advantage of, then what are my boundaries around this specific act of care. Do I feel reciprocal with this person? If not with this person, like, is that okay? Can I still get these needs met somewhere else? Because like not every single relationship that I'm in feels reciprocal. Like that's just not the way of things in my experience. And also sometimes I'm going to give to someone who cannot give back to me. And also then I hope and know though that those needs in me still need to be met. And so then in my other relationships, how am I getting those needs met? Like who do I get to go to and say, damn, I really felt taken advantage of in this situation. What do I need to do to not feel that way with this person anymore? So yeah, compassion towards myself. Because, okay, so like with dinner last night, I almost had that thing where I was like, oh my God, I have to eat it. But then the compassion towards myself was like, okay, you don't have to. It's okay that that lives in the fridge. I can still appreciate the gesture and I can also still eat it as another meal. And also tonight, I really wanted to cook. Like I came down here with a plan in mind. And none of that has to change. And all of that is still okay. Like I guess I think culturally, and in my family, women, honestly, it feels like everybody. I'm starting to get a little bit more attuned to how maybe everybody operates like this a little bit, uh, as a martyr. Because, and part of it is like the way that I've always heard my family talk about other family members who are maybe like doing something. Oh, kind of like, who does she think she is? Kind of, or she must think that she's like really important, or it's like something like that. And so there's always been this like shame around taking care of yourself, or shame around having the audacity to go, yeah, I'm not going to eat that. Food was definitely you. I've heard the food theme like come up multiple times just as I'm talking about, like, food was a big deal. Like, how dare you not eat grandmother's food? She had cooked that specifically for you. So you better shut up and like it. But like the compassion for myself now says like, I can tell her that I appreciate it. I can deal with her being upset if she gets upset, and I can also eat or not eat what I want to or don't want to. So yeah, compassion for myself just generally feels more like, what do I want and what do I need out of this at all?
Mhm. Yeah, like empathy with self to me feels a little like the phrase like it be like that sometimes. It's just like,
Mhm.
well, I felt like this before, like this isn't an unfamiliar feeling, like I can empathize with myself or whatever, but then like for me, I then want to like just kind of move on, like empathy and move on. And then compassion says no, like whoa, there is some like action that could be taken place to nurture ourself here. And so if you would just slow down and sit with the suffering and like identify the suffering and like put a name to the suffering, then we could actually get more nurturing out of this. And then that is like self-compassion versus
Mhm.
just like empathy with self, which I think like empathy with self can turn into that martyrdom because it's just like, well, this is how
I
I
feel
feel. This is
horrible,
how
but
it
I'm
feels
doing it
sometimes.
anyway. Yeah. Or like, I know it's bad, but it's not that bad. That's that's a martyrdom one. Like the always going to the silver lining thing.
Mhm.
Like
And doing
I
that with
can suffer
ourselves
through.
really prevents self-compassion. And what
Mhm.
self-compassion does is it like refills our own tank with nurturing and support.
Yeah. What did the differences feel like to you?
Um, hmm, well, just I think we've like spoken to this a little bit, but like it definitely feels easier to have compassion towards others
Mhm.
than it does to have compassion towards myself. I historically hold myself to unreasonably high standards. Um, in every category of my life. And so I tend to like pressurize myself, and that really gets in the way of my own self-compassion. And so I feel like the universe has given me a lot of lessons in like putting me in spaces and places that's just like
Mhm.
you can't possibly do anymore. So you're gonna have to chill the fuck out and like learn about some self-compassion and receive some compassion from other people.
Mhm.
Like when I was so burnt out from the business, like which was around the same time I met Jake. that was like a really big like learning curve for me of like receiving nurturing and like letting someone love and care for and fall in love with me when I did not feel like my best. I was like not performing, like
Mhm.
how I know myself to be. And I was just like, wow, I am not up to my own par, but and for him it wasn't like extending compassion, but to me it felt very compassionate because that was like, yeah, like where I needed to like learn that again, that like receiving. And that really helped me with my own self-compassion, right? Because then it's like, oh, this person thinks I'm worthy of nurture, so therefore I can be more willing to see that I myself am more worthy of nurturing myself. So in my experience, the two have been very integral, like it's not the exact word I'm looking for. Um
Intertwined.
Totally. That's a word that works for sure. Very intertwined, where one like feeds into the other and vice versa. And then definitely like how you're speaking, like the more I've learned about my self-compassion, the more clear I've been able to be in what compassion towards others
Mhm.
and helpfully looks like.
That's a really what you just said about healthfully and helpfully look like okay, Lily, for instance, is my niece. She's 2. And a way that often people try to help her is by jumping in and doing something for her. That makes her furious. Our little Leo baby just gets furious about that, and she's screaming and she's kicking the whole 9 yards. And like, I think that because I recognize that slight distinction in myself of like, why does when this person comes in to do what they're calling helping, why does this make me so fucking furious? And because I'm like, because you're trying to take something away from me is what it feels like. You're trying to take away my play in this situation. You're trying to take away my learning. You're trying to take away my feeling of accomplishment that I wanted to that I haven't felt all day long. And then I wanted to do this thing and feel good. And you're taking that away from me. And so because I was really able to like distinguish that in myself instead of just being like, yeah, Kate, you're bad at letting people help you, instead of just like letting that story be the story and then letting that person do what they wanted to do and then me not get what I want and blah, 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 like doing the pattern. um, I think that that really helped me feel more clear on how to be with her and and also it showed me like, Kate, you feel uncomfortable watching her struggle. And what you know for yourself is that your struggle leads to growth and opportunity. Also, one time Taylor had this horrible wrist accident. He like had this whole wrist thing. And when he came home, I was so ready to like do everything for him. And at one point, I was like doing the most and just trying to help him too much. And he goes, "You're going to have to just be okay with letting me struggle sometimes." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. Okay." So, like, him saying that to me was such a compassionate thing for him because what he was saying for himself was like, "You're doing too much and I need you to stop." And then also, what he offered me was like, you need to deepen your capacity for this discomfort that you feel watching other people struggle. You're not helping like you think you are. And so I really like that you just said that thing about and it's like your access to your own empathy gave you that awareness that distinguishes between, am I actually being helpful or am I just trying to make myself feel less uncomfortable about what I am seeing in front of me? Am I just
Mm,
affronted with this person's discomfort
mm,
and I want it to stop because I want to feel better? Or am I
mhm,
actually helping that person? Those, you're right.
mhm.
Those are two major different things.
That there's a big difference between compassion and fixing.
Yeah. And also, even like I like you said earlier something about coming up with like creative solutions together. Still, if the person is in if your person says like, "Yes, I'd like for you to help me come up with some creative solutions," still there is like, I definitely have somebody in my life who's like a fixer, who would call herself a fixer, and she wants to fix it for you. But like when somebody else wants you to help them come up with a creative solution, it's still going to be the solution that's right for them. Even if you if you leave the phone call and you're like, that shit is never going to work, that was the worst idea ever. It's like, that's not your problem. You know, you have
Totally.
to let them do it. And like the compassionate thing is to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about what Tara Brach calls the reign of compassion, because I think it's such a helpful way of like breaking down moving into self-compassion with yourself.
Yeah, totally. I love this one. She has this is one that I come back to over and over and over again. She has a PDF on her website that's called The Rain of Self-Compassion, and rain, like rain coming out of the sky, RAIN. She has a talk on YouTube. She has a Spotify meditation or something. Anyway, it's like 10 minutes long. Google it and search for Tara Brach, Rain of Self-Compassion. But the idea is that it's a meditation practice. R stands for recognize. So first she'll talk you through recognizing what is even here. Next is allow. And so, yeah, I recognize what is here and it's allowed to be here. I recognize that I feel fury in my body. That's allowed to be here. I stands for investigate. Okay, and here's an important distinction, is that I does not stand for interrogate. I have used investigate for a long time. I used it and really meant the word interrogate. And like, I would like sit down during my meditation practice and it was like good cop, bad cop in there, you know, just like I had that one part that was like, tell me more. What is this? Where did this come from? But it's like, there's such a difference when you, okay, and like everything I think about with like our somatic practices and our self-study practices, like we are treating ourselves like we're children because we are nurturing. And there's it's not going to nurture a child into growth by interrogating them. You know, it's a little bit the energy of when you're like a teenager and you get in the car and your mom goes, how was school? And you go, fine. And they go, what did you learn? And you go, nothing. And they're like, who'd you talk to today? And you're like, fucking nobody, you know? And then like and then they're just like, how do you go to school? And then, you know, and then all of a sudden you're fighting.
Yeah.
But like the reality was that maybe you just needed to check out for a second after school before you
yeah,
really...
that like,
yeah, go.
That interrogating is like forcing information, and
Yes.
investigating is a practice of looking for clues.
Yes, and a nurturing kind of way of finding out information. It's just gathering information. Yeah, clues. You're just looking for clues to get to know what's going on better. That is it. That's it. We're done. The podcast is over.
Well, you can't skip in.
We can't skip in because in is nurture. In is going like, oh, okay. So for me with the whole like really liking to feel capable sometimes of something, it's like, it's the same fucking reason that I carry all 15 bags of groceries, you know, inside the house. I will not be taking 2 trips. That is unreasonable. But what is reasonable is me stacking my arms up full of bags, you know, one of them breaking like But like, and what I will say is like, so what if that is a ridiculous thing? If when I get in the house, I feel like I just fucking crushed it, you know, like, why don't I get to feel that way? Why can't I feel that way sometimes? It doesn't mean that I can't be in a relationship with people. It means that I like to feel capable. And sometimes feeling capable on my own is an okay thing to feel. So it's like, so noticing, okay, I have the desire to feel capable. I want to do this by myself. Okay, great. Let's nurture that then. What could you say in order to make this a safe thing for you to do by yourself? Could you maybe ask for like, hey, can I try for another 10 minutes and then will you check in with me if I still haven't gotten it yet? You know, like how can that part of me be nurtured? What I just recognized and have allowed and investigated the clues, found some clues. How can the clues be nurtured?
Yeah, I had a client this week and we were talking about like the desire for more ease in life. And they are also in a phase of life where they have reconnected to a regular movement practice and want to maintain that. And then they also want to explore more fully their creativity and like create structures around that. And those three things were just feeling a little bit like disconjointed, right? Like creativity, ease, movement, kind of like boxes to check off, right?
Yeah.
And so a question that I asked was like, okay, cool. Like I know that ease feels like a really important quality that you want to cultivate in your life. And you have started practicing this movement, and that has become a regular like routine for you. And what's still kind of missing is like the structure around the creativity. Is there a time of day that that it feels best for you to move that actually gives more ease of access into your creativity, whether that's after you've created in the morning, you move to then be able to move on into your day, or vice versa, you do some physical movement in order to get the creative juices going? Like, how can these pieces of life work together to foster more ease instead of it being like, I've got to fit all these things in and remember to be ease. And
Totally,
it feels kind of
yeah.
like that.
I have
like
to
the
force all these
nurturing
things to happen and also ease.
like the nurturing with ourselves feels kind of like that. Yeah, that creative problem solving of like, okay, well, all this exists, so like none of it's bad. And like, how can I reframe it for myself in a way that gets the needs met and also, yeah, like I don't know, leads to living a life the way I want life to like look and
Yes.
feel.
Yeah, and it's like when we talk about compassion, one of the first things that we mention in kind of like that compassion is repatterning. And when you think of like repatterning, also what that is the process of reparenting yourself. And so I find like a lot of my like cohort of friends and stuff is like we're in maybe our early 30s, and for the past couple of years we've been in the practice of going, all right, well, I'm kind of my own parent now, so what kind of person do I want to be to myself? And is it the kind of person who says um everything should be a lot easier than it already is, and you definitely have to have a movement practice every day, and also don't forget that you're supposed to be being creative alongside all of this? Like, is that the kind of voice that I want to wake up to? Or is the kind of voice that goes like, hey, Kate, how you doing? What are you thinking about today? What would feel good to you today? Oh my gosh, you want to move your body today? Cute. Let's figure out a way to do that. Like, oh, you saw something that was beautiful and you want to just draw that or like reflect some of those colors back to, like, wow, the openness that allows those things to like naturally come through feels a lot more compassionate, and also feels a lot more like they're actually going to happen. Like, feels more hopeful,
Mm, more
like
possible.
more possible. Yeah. Like, I'm actually going to move my body if I'm like, oh, I want to. And so I'm gonna, like, oh my God, what a revolution. Instead of like the CDC says you should. And so do all my favorite Instagram influencers, like, yeah.
And it also like just hearing you talk through that, right? It's like the second option like sounds like living, and the first
Mhm.
option sounds like I don't know, roboting,
Major
like
pain.
just doing, forcing, pushing.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah,
Mm,
and I don't know, I just feel like maybe I had a compassionate moment for my parents, at least, is like the the way that we often like treat other people, especially often, I think, I guess it's probably everybody, but the way that we treat people who we see their potential and we want them to do well. Like, I remember a thing in ballet class. It was always like, I remember I had this teacher who was really very harsh on this one girl in class. He was more harsh on her than anyone else. And one time she called him on it and she was like, you're being mean to me. And he was like, you are the best one in this class. And so you are getting the most attention from me because I want you to be the best. And I just kind of remember thinking, like, that's not what you brought out in her at all. And like, now imagine like the rest of us feel like shit now. Like, it's not working. So she's not honored by what you've just said. she's hurt that, and I'm hurt. We're all hurt, and you're pissed. What do you mean? So I
And
think
that's
there
so
is
much.
that. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it feels like, yeah, like beating somebody into being the best version of themselves just isn't it. It doesn't work like that.
And I think I know that for myself, and I think that as a whole, we do that to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's what like all the shoulding is and stuff. It's like, or like the prescribed, like this is how my life should go, or like this is what it needs to look like, or if I get a degree in this, then I have to do this, and like all these things that we're just literally like being the hardest ballet teacher on ourselves, because we do know that we want we want a life that we're proud of, right? Like we see the potential in ourselves, but then it's like, wow, that's exhausting, and it doesn't lead to success, it doesn't lead to fulfillment, it doesn't lead to full expression.
It's why New Year's resolutions don't work, because then people think that we can. It's why weight loss doesn't work, and like, don't even get me started on like diet culture and anti-fat bias and weight loss as like a whole podcast episode in itself. But like, we are just fed these lies about how we have to treat ourselves in order to feel well, honestly, and it's just like we can't willpower ourselves into it. If you hate playing the piano, no matter how much you practice, you're going to hate it. It's going to feel clunky the whole time if you hate the way the piano sounds, but like if you love it and you've got some show coming up that's really important to you that you want to do well at, you're going to do it. Probably.
Well, and that there's a difference between like the discipline that's required when there's like a discomfort versus pushing because to prove something.
Yes, totally. Yeah, the discomfort is something that can be nurtured and is a point of growth every single time. But the forcing isn't what the discomfort is. The discomfort is the narrative that says you're not a good person until you behave like this, or until you look like this, or until you sound like this. The discomfort is what Tara Brach would call the trance of unworthiness. And the trance of unworthiness says, like, for me, when it comes to wanting to feel capable, the trance of unworthiness says, like, you struggling, you're not allowed to struggle in front of others because they don't like it, so you have to let them help you. Coupled with, and also you're not allowed to speak up for what you want and what you need because you're too much.
Yeah, and how like you all listening, like you can feel the difference in those energies, right? Between like when it is like external versus internal, that kind of like forcing, and then also when it's like just a discomfort that's like meant for you to be with and like work through because it's something that you want or desire, like what it feels like to have the difference, like the difference between like it feels good for me to take a walk around the lake across from my house, and there still might be resistance sometimes depending on whatever the time of day, but like that discomfort is different than me forcing myself to run 3 laps around the lake every day, which I don't enjoy.
Yes. And afterwards, after you do something like run 3 laps, when you don't enjoy it, you're not connected to it. I feel better after I do this, so I'm doing it for my mental well-being or whatever. Like when you're just forcing yourself to do it for some random external reason that somehow you've like grasped onto as a thing that you need. Yeah, that doesn't ever. And then afterwards, it's like maybe sometimes you feel a little bit better after running 3 laps because that's just the nature of running sometimes. But also, like for me, generally not.
Yeah, I think this is like something to do at home, is like start to notice these like nuanced, subtle differences in like everything that you're doing, like who's it like for whom, according to whom, does it feel good? Is it leading to the life that you want to live? Is it compassionate for yourself? Is it compassionate truly for others? And then that gives us, like in the self-study practice, we have been through 7 themes. This is the 8th theme. So like you have the practice of the themes and the cultivated qualities that of course are always worth coming back to, but like you've been paying attention to those things. So now sprinkle in the compassionate element and just start to notice like, okay, cool. I've like worked really hard on these themes and really like cultivated them. So now though, according to me, how do I want this to work together? What's the most compassionate way to move forward? How do I integrate for myself? Not because of what Kate and Ruby say, not because of what I'm supposed to be doing or whatever, but because this is how these themes get to express in my life. Like, this is what I want it to look and feel like.
Yeah. And there's no body who has experienced compassion in a way that is right or wrong. So like if you experience compassion, you know the nuance of am I experiencing compassion right now? And there is a nuance to it, right? Because like sometimes like, yeah, we get in these patterns where it's like we've learned how to not be treated well. And we've learned to take that as like, oh, I am being treated well because this is how I've always been treated. But also your body knows the difference, at least somewhere deep.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so maybe you already know what that feels like, or you're ready to start listening for that. So start listening
Yeah.
for that.
And start listening for that by recognizing it, allowing it, investigating it, and nurturing it. And like I did this practice one time around it was when I was running the gym and I was having regular shame spirals around ignorance. It was ignorance for me as a trainer, ignorance as somebody who owns a gym, ignorance as a thin white woman in the fitness world, just like ignorance in general. And what this literal practice offered me was I recognized I feel ignorant. I allowed the hella discomfort that it is for it to settle in your body, that not only do I feel ignorant, I am legitimately ignorant about some things. Allow that to sit in my body. I investigated it. Okay, like what am I believing? What am I believing about ignorance? And I was believing all this like you're bad because you're ignorant. You're stupid because you're ignorant. You should probably crawl in a hole until you somehow are not ignorant anymore. Like all of these things. And then I was like, okay, I'm hearing all those stories, but let's like neutralize that. So like all of those things are just stories around ignorance. And they are cultural stories. You know, we say ignorant like it's like a really bad thing to be. And then it was like the nurturing part was like, okay, what would help? And it was like, it would help if I got some education. If I was regularly in a knowledge building place around these things that I feel are very important and that I also recognize and I'm ignorant about. So then I just like got to reading, you know, and there was like a sense of like softening into that sort of like education. I like took classes, I showed up for workshops, I signed up for trainings, like all of this stuff. Because now when I realize that I don't know something, instead of all these stories coming up that say like, I'm bad, now what I know is like, oh, I don't know anything about that. Can you tell me about that? Or like, what do you know about that is making you feel however you feel? Like, tell me more. And now instead of I'm ignorant and unworthy, which was like the trance of the unworthiness, now it is I'm ignorant and capable of learning and doing better. Like I have so much proof of learning and doing better. And I'm proud of that. And that is literally something that specific reign of self-compassion taught me. So it's not like the nurturing isn't always like, oh, sweetie, you're doing great. You're doing great just as you are. There's not a single thing wrong with you. Like that hurt inside of the shame was like, can we do something about this, please? And it was like, actually, yes, we can. So yeah.
Be a little more self-compassionate.
Yeah.
Try it on.
Try it on.
The self-study program gives you the skills and techniques to explore your feelings, identify your needs, set boundaries, and communicate clearly and compassionately so that who you want to be aligns with how you show up.
The self-study program offers a container for inquiry and self-discovery. It's a place for you to land. When you give yourself a framework for accountability, you open yourself to the possibilities that are awaiting you.
The self-study program is a group coaching curriculum that fosters autonomy, yes and thinking, and meaningful connection. We do it together as a reminder that we are not alone.
May you be happy.
May you be healthy.
May you be safe.
May you be free.
And may you be compassionate.
Until next time, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
That felt good.